What's happening, everyone? My name is James Lynch, and this is the Fanatics View Hockey Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you guys have any questions, post them in the chat. I'll get to every single one of them I can. We got a lot to get into today, a lot going on in the world of hockey. We'll talk a little bit about the Four Nations. I know that was last week, but this is the first show that I've done since it's been back, so we can get into that. We can also get into some of the action that took place in the NHL last night. And I also want to talk a little bit about Elias Pettersson. I know we do talk a lot of Canucks here on the show, but it is a big talking point right now with some of the comments he made the other day following the Canucks loss to Utah on Sunday night. So we'll get into that and so much more. Let's first start with some of the action from last night, and then I'll show you some of the stuff we got here on the channel, and then we'll get into Elias Pettersson. But again, happy to answer any of the questions that you have right now. So big game last night, the Maple Leafs taking out the Bruins in overtime. The Leafs were down in this one. They were down 3-0 at one point, and the Leafs come back, 3 goals in the third period, and Mitch Marner scoring in overtime. He's going to get a big contract, whether it's in Toronto or not. Mitch Marner is playing some of the best hockey ever. You even go back to the Four Nations and how great he was playing there. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens with him. There's a couple big name free agents that are coming up here at the end of the season. Mitch Marner certainly making a great case for him. And the other big story here is the Bruins lose another game here. They are on the outside looking in. We'll talk about the standings in a second here, but obviously very concerning for Boston not being able to get it done after having that lead. The Blue Jackets defeating the Dallas Stars yesterday. The Blue Jackets continuing to sort of keep their head afloat in the Eastern Playoff Conference race. You look at it there. Kirill Marchenko, 2 goals and 1 assist, 3 points. I know our guy Troy Nowak is happy about that. Merzlikins making enough saves that he needed to. The Stars getting a rare loss here. Doesn't happen too often. We got the Panthers beating the Predators. A really good quote yesterday from Luke Shen. I'm actually going to bring this up here in a second. Where are we? Actually, hold on. That Predators game was the other day. Or no, Predators played last night. Anyway, so we'll just talk quickly. Flyers beating the Penguins 6-1. Penguins, again, going to be sellers at the deadline. You got the Sabres beating the Ducks. Not like it matters. The Canadiens blanking the Hurricanes 4-0. Really surprising there. A bunch of players held off the scoreboard. Frederik Andersen, 14 saves on 18 shots. That's not good. I still think the Hurricanes need a goalie at the deadline. Of course, there's talk about Mikko Rantanen getting flipped again, as they do not have a contract with him following that big trade with Martin Necas. The Canadiens getting a lot of offensive help from Patrick Laine, who's been a bit criticized the last couple months. 2 assists and a goal. Nick Suzuki, also a goal and 2 assists. Some other games, the Flames beating the Capitals. So the Flames now are in playoff position right now. The Canucks are not. So with that win, the Flames, they beat the Sharks the other night. Now they beat the Capitals. Big win for them on their road trip as they take out a very good team in the Eastern Conference. The Rangers beating the Islanders 5-1. JT Miller against Bo Horvat, which is pretty interesting there. The Oilers losing again. And I believe Jeff Skinner was scratched again, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think he played last night. So something's up there. That was one of their good signings in the offseason. But yeah, Tampa Bay 4-1. The Oilers again, I think they've lost a couple in a row. We'll talk about them in a sec. The Blues thumping the Kraken 7-2. This was the game, the Panthers and the Predators. Let me find the quote here that Luke Chen talked about with the Nashville Predators. This was very interesting. I got the quote right here. We'll pull it up. He says, I don't think I've ever been a part of a group like this that literally can't score a goal, so things not going well. I've said this before. I don't really understand what Nashville's doing. Like, you're not going to make the playoffs. Why are they not more aggressive on the trade market in trying to sell off assets? I don't really know what the point is. I haven't heard a whole lot. I know they made a few trades getting rid of Dante Fabro, Carrier, but they should start looking at some of their bigger names like Philip Forsberg and see if there's an interest in the market for them as well. But coming from a veteran like Luke Shen, not very good to hear, although those words could be led to the Canucks as well. The Red Wings beating the Wild. The Wings again quite hot as of late, and Utah again continuing their winning ways, getting it done over the Chicago Blackhawks. We'll talk a little bit about tonight's action, but like we always do on this channel, wanted to show you some of the content we got up here on the channel. My guy Taylor working around the clock here. You'll see we got post-game stuff. So yeah, the Luke Shen stuff, you can find it there along with the other Predators quotes. We had some Canucks stuff. Again, a lot going on in Vancouver right now with Elias Pettersson and all that. Utah, we got some stuff there. And some New Jersey Devils stuff too. So lots of good stuff here on the channel. Let's get to a few questions though, and then we'll get into the Elias Pettersson stuff. Rangers drop 8-2 to the Sabres, but then come back with a 5-3 win over the Penguins and 5-1 win over the Islanders. Both away. Hockey is fun. Yeah, the Rangers, I mean, again, Miller is kind of doing what they want, giving them that kind of boost, and it seems to be working out for them. Can see a team like Chicago taking a chance on that contract, but not many more teams. Vancouver has to hope he finds his game down the stretch to see if they can unload on him this summer. So this is referring to Elias Pettersson, which we'll get into in a second. I realize it's early in some weird circumstances. The Hurricanes are struggling bad. Would you deal Marner since he's set on going to free agency and other factors that Brad Treliving probably is a bit of a sensitive to losing a UFA for nothing at this point. And of course, Treliving went through this with Calgary, losing out to Johnny Gaudreau going to the Columbus Blue Jackets. I mean, you'd have to think if Marner's not re-signed by close to the trade deadline, that they have to look at other options. Like, you can't risk losing a player like that for nothing. Even at the very least, if you can trade Marner to a team and get some sort of draft pick or something, that's worth it more than getting absolutely nothing in return. So I think the Marner thing's really interesting. Remember, John Tavares is also a UFA, so that's another one that we can keep an eye on. We got Brock Besser, Mikko Rantanen. There's a lot of UFAs coming up here, guys. I want to actually see if we have a list of the UFAs. 2025 NHL UFAs. Yeah, it looks like we have a list here. And they're obviously not in the order of, doesn't look like we have them in the order of like most important, but let's see here. Actually, we'll go with the AAV and see if we can get some better numbers here. Okay, this doesn't look right because I'm not seeing Mitch Marner on this list. Here we go. Top 2025 unrestricted free agents. So we'll go through the list here. Yeah, there we go. This is the list I was looking for. So you look at it there. Mitch Marner, Mikko Rantanen, Aaron Ekblad, Ehlers. I forgot about him. He's another guy. And Winnipeg's doing well, so I don't know if they're going to want to be sellers. Brock Besser, Brock Nelson. Chychrun. Chychrun is a UFA. I didn't realize that. Okay. Claude Giroux, Matt Duchene, Marcus Pettersson got re-signed, so he's off the list. Brad Marchand. Is Marchand a UFA? I guess he is. I know they were talking contract extension, but for some reason I had it in my head he had another year. Let me check this out. Because that would be surprising if the Bruins don't get something done with Brad Marchand. Although we did hear before the upcoming season, yeah, he's a UFA next year. Wow. Okay, so some big names on here. Even Aiden Hill for the Knights is something intriguing, just with the simple fact that, like, what's Vegas going to do in net if he decides to walk? So yeah, very big free agent class. I imagine some of these will either get dealt or they'll get re-signed before the deadline. But a lot to consider. Brad being a free agent is crazy. He ain't leaving no way. Well, I don't know, man. Like, if you're the Bruins, I think you got to start. Let's look at the standings here quickly. You might want to look at a rebuild at this point because the Bruins are in kind of the spot where it's like they're just good enough to be maybe a playoff team. Although looking at the standings right now, they're in the outside looking in. If you're not making the playoffs and you got some aging veterans, it might be time to start a rebuild. Yeah, because they got 62 points, 59 games played. Look at that goal differential, minus 27. So right now, I guess they're 2 points behind Columbus, and Columbus has a game in hand. Look at the Wings. They're going to have 66 points. They're in 7th spot right now. So they're kind of on the bubble here, but if things go really sour, like even last night's game, I do wonder if the Bruins look to make a move here and possibly part ways with Brad Marchand. So that's what the East looks like. We got the Capitals on top. Leafs have been playing some good hockey there in number 2. Panthers, Lightning have come a ways. Hurricanes have dipped a bit. You got the Devils, Wings, and Jackets, and then on the outside looking in, you got the Senators, Rangers. Rangers have been making a decent push, though. So, yeah, it's going to be very interesting in the East. And then in the West, obviously the Jets still kicking some ass. Dallas Stars, they lose last night, but they're still in 2nd place. You got the Knights, Wild, Oilers, the Kings, I told you would drop a bit. They certainly have. The Avs and the Flames. And right now, the Canucks are a point behind the Flames. Same games played. And they have a couple games in hand over the Avalanche, but the Avalanche a lot further ahead there at 68 points. So we'll see what is going to happen there. And you look at it there, the Utah is only 2 points behind Vancouver, but they have 2 games in hand. So that was a key loss for Vancouver the other night. Okay, let's get into, let's get a few more questions here. I think at this point, rooting for the Blue Jackets at this point, doing great with even Monahan, Marchenko, Werenski, are all having phenomenal seasons. There we go. Patrick Kane, UFA. I believe he is. I think he only signed a 1-year deal with Detroit, but I mean, Patrick Kane's not the old Patrick Kane. I mean, you're bringing him in to get sort of locker room stuff and everywhere else. Yeah, he's done after the season. He's at $4 million right now. Does any fan base want Brad Marchand? You know what, though? Here's the thing. Like, it was weird. I don't know how you guys felt. Any Canadians in here? A lot of Canadians don't like Brad Marchand. If you're a Leafs fan, if you're a Canucks fan, you're not liking Brad Marchand. You had to cheer for him at the Four Nations, right? It's a bit weird, but it's one of those things. If he's on your team, you're probably a fan. If he's not on your team, you probably don't like him. So, listen, Marchand's one of those few guys that can get under your skin. He can score goals. I think a lot of teams would want him, despite what the public perception is. And, there's that side of him that can be a bit reckless, but I think teams would be willing to take a chance on him. I mean, you put a Brad Marchand on like a Colorado or Tampa Bay or something along those lines, that certainly changes the dynamic a little bit. Okay, let's get into this Elias Pettersson stuff, because I think this is really interesting. And again, I don't want this to just be a Vancouver Canucks show, but to me, this is big news, because we're talking about one of the top paid players in the NHL who's struggling immensely. And it just seems like things are not working out for Elias Pettersson. What happened in the Four Nations? He was demoted. He wasn't playing very well. So here's the quote. So just to set this up a little bit, Canucks play Utah, really bad game, barely got any shots in that one. I think they got like 15 shots. Pettersson did have a nice drive to the net there, ends up missing the net. Very, very visibly frustrated. And, it's the same thing with Rick Tocchet and the coach basically going over and saying, look, Pettersson's got to move his feet, which is stuff that my 7-year-old hears when he's playing hockey. It's the same sort of thing. Like, who doesn't know not to move your feet? So, there's a lot of talk about Pettersson. And again, I think there were some people who felt like, okay, well, if he goes to the Four Nations, he might play better. He didn't. Pettersson was a non-factor for Sweden in the Four Nations. So here's the quote. Let me bring it up for you guys right here. So this is the article from Ian McIntyre. And this was done without a ton of reporters. Like, for those who don't know, on the road right now with Vancouver, there's maybe like a couple of reporters. One or two of those are in-house reporters, meaning that they work for the Canucks. So they're not going to ask any hard-hitting questions. It's only going to be positive stuff. Then you have Ian McIntyre, who works for Sportsnet. Sportsnet has the rights to the Canucks. So, Ian does ask pretty fair questions. He's a pretty fair guy. But this is the quote that has pissed a lot of people off. And I'm going to read it for you right here. Let me just grab it, because someone actually highlighted it. Sorry, guys. I know I'm taking a while to set this up, but I'm trying to find the exact quote that I'm looking for here. Let's see. Here we go. This is the quote that stood out. When we asked Pettersson, and keep in mind, this is after the game, off the record, there aren't any cameras. This is just Pettersson to Ian McIntyre, the reporter. It's not like he's being pressured by a bunch of other media. When we asked Pettersson whether confidence is a factor when struggling to score, the alternate captain said it's more annoying dealing with the media. Dude, come on. There's no media pressure. I mean, there is noise in Vancouver, but if you go back to 2011, or you go back to when the Canucks, were a really good team a decade ago, even before, even after that a bit, right? After COVID hit, certainly things changed in terms of media coverage. You don't have as many reporters on the road. There's one reporter there, Ian McIntyre, and there's a couple, Canucks softball reporters there. And this is the reaction you're having. It's more annoying dealing with the media. He's not playing well. Any other market, even if you're in a non-Canadian market, even if you're in Florida or something like that, if you have $11.6 million player and he's not performing, you're going to get questions about it. So for him to say that it's more annoying dealing with the media, it's there's been no media pushback at all, barely anything. You know what I mean? The correct answer here would be, look, I just got to find ways to improve my game. Don't blame the media for this. The media is not the reason that you're struggling here. The reason you're struggling is, I don't know, is it a confidence thing? There's still all these rumblings about an injury. There was a screenshot that went around social media that showed Elias Pettersson putting ice on his knee. To me, if you're that injured, take some time off, get better. But this is not good for anyone. He's only plummeting his value right now, and he's only making things worse for the team by saying stuff like this. To me, I read this, and I'm in a group chat with a couple friends of mine when it comes to the Canucks. This might be the kiss of death for Pettersson and him leaving the Canucks, because you got to remember that $11.6 million contract doesn't kick in until next year. He doesn't have trade protection. The Canucks can trade him. John earlier was talking about teams that might want to take advantage of him. I guarantee you there'll be teams who think they can fix him, because Pettersson has had the points in the past, right? It's not like he had some glaring injury. It's for example, it's not like you look at Philip Cheadle, right? Canucks were, a lot of people are like, oh man, why would the Canucks acquire him? He's got a history of injuries. That I could see being more of a liability. But even Cheadle, fetched a guy like JT Miller in return. Let's look at the stats here for Pettersson. He's capable of being a good player here, right? 66 points his first two seasons. That's kind of where he's looking like he's going to hit this year, actually, although not that many games left. I don't know if he's even going to hit it. And then there was the 102-point season in 2022-2023. Last season, with him even having a decline in the second half of the year, he still got 89 points. He's not going to come anywhere close to that this year, and he's also a -4. Now, granted, the team's not playing as well, but still, it does cause a bit of concern here. Like, are you going to get this? So kind of my point is, I think there will be suitors for Pettersson, just for the simple fact that there's teams that think they can fix him. Now, are you going to get full value for Pettersson? Absolutely not. But at this point, it's about cap space. It's about term. It's about trying to wrong the right, because here's what you don't want to have happen. You don't want to have a player that is not going to achieve the level that it did in the past, and you've got him tied up for another 8 years. That's not what you want. So, I mean, I don't, like, if I'm a betting man right now, I don't think Elias Pettersson's going to be with the Canucks after the draft. If I had to bet right now, just the way things are playing out. Again, quotes like this don't help, right? Like the whole, it's the media's fault when there's not really much pushback. He's not performing. Again, the Four Nations he didn't look at either. Like, I could even understand. I've also heard people say, oh, it's Rick Tocchet's system. That's why Elias Pettersson is not playing as well. Tocchet drives players out of town, all that. Why is he not playing well at the Four Nations? It's a completely different team, completely different system. He was a non-factor. Why is that? Now, let's say, like I said, let's say he is injured. If that's the case, then he's only hurting himself even more by playing and not, being upfront with the team. Like, why can't he just refuse to play? Why can't he just say, listen, I'm not playing to my ability. I need some time off. They let JT Miller take a 10-game absence or whatever it was due to mental stuff. Why can't Pettersson do it if he's really injured? I don't think he's that injured. I think that there's something, I don't know. I don't know. Like, I think it's something mental. Because also, let's say you're injured. What's preventing you from taking that shot? There's been too many times, and I saw it in the Four Nations too, where Pettersson has a chance to shoot, and he takes that extra second to pass or to take an extra, sort of deke, and he doesn't shoot it. So that, to me, this looks like an environment thing, and to me, I think he'd be better in another environment. And yes, you risk, as the Canucks, trading a player like Pettersson. And listen, I don't want to trade Pettersson. I have his jersey. He's my son's favorite player. I would love to see Pettersson stick around and figure this out, but I also understand that time's ticking here, and the Canucks have a window where they can wrong this right, or right this wrong, I should say, and potentially get something in return. And here's the thing: you're not going to get full value for Pettersson in return, but what you will get is the $11.6 million in cap space, and you can use that on a number of things. There's even rumblings right now that maybe the Canucks go after Mikko Rantanen because he's going to want $14 million. At least he's producing. Pettersson isn't. So I don't know. I just think that. Yeah, to me, it's just like, it just seems like things are not going well. Unless something drastic changes, unless we start seeing Pettersson really light it up here in the next couple games and, he's able to turn this around, I don't see how the Canucks keep him at this point. And the fans are losing their patience. Because here's the thing, they've done everything to cater to Elias Pettersson. They got him different wingers, right? They brought in Kuzmenko a couple seasons ago. Tocchet didn't like him. He's out. They bring in, they had Mikheyev. They bring in Jake DeBrusk. There's all these things they've done. They trade JT Miller because apparently he was the problem in the locker room. I still don't have an issue with them trading Miller because, like, he was not playing great defense either, and that was a liability for the team. You don't want that. It's a bad look when an assistant captain on your team is not back checking. I understand that part of it. Also, Miller's older. Didn't have an issue with the trade there. But they've done all these things to cater to Pettersson, and he's not living up to his end of the bargain. Like I said, if he's really hurt and he can't do it, sit. Don't play. I think the Canucks would be in a better spot if he chose to do that if he's really injured than if he's not, and that's why I don't think he's injured enough where he can't get it done. Or why are you playing in the Four Nations if you're injured? That all these things factor in. So yeah. Long story short, I don't think it's going to end well for Elias Pettersson in Vancouver. I hope he figures it out, but if I'm a betting man, I think he's going to be dealt. So we'll see. I didn't cheer for him. At best, I loathe him. There was a lot of Canadians that cheered for Marchand. Maybe not cheered for him specifically, but if he's on the ice and he's scoring a goal, you're not going to cheer for that. That's kind of what I'm getting at. What's up, Billy? Miller was out. Mental health was actually team timeout for the Spaz attack on EP40, well-known establishment after a few wobbly pops. So I heard it wasn't Pettersson that he went after. It was a video coach was the rumor. Either way, there was some issue with Miller and the team. He needed to take some time out. My whole thing, though, is why not let Pettersson take some time off if he's like, this isn't working, what's happening out there. And I know you can take away like little, good things about him playing good defense or whatever, but that's not enough for an $11.6 million player. Someone capped his salary to his production, and his production right now is about a third line center. He's supposed to be the first line center. How does that work? Multiple team personnel. Okay, fair enough. But Miller was an issue. Like I said, I don't have a problem trading Miller, but my whole thing is they are trying to create the best environment possible for Pettersson, and it's still not working out. So that's a big concern right now. And I can understand people's frustrations. Then there's all the Quinn Hughes stuff too. Like, Did the Canucks block him from going to play, at least see Team USA? Is he upset about that? Is he going to bolt and go play for New Jersey? Like, things are very uncertain in Vancouver right now. And it'll be interesting to see how the ship goes sort of going forward. I don't know how this is going to end. It's going to be interesting. Keep the questions coming, everyone. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell. As far as other things going on in the league right now, I talked about the standings a little bit. How about Seth Jones' comments yesterday? I don't know if you guys missed that. We can dig into it. He kind of was upset with his team. So here's the quote here. See if we can find it. And it's been a tough season for the Blackhawks, especially not just Seth Jones, but Connor Bedard obviously is not playing well. There's a lot of issues right now with the team, but here, I'll read the article here. It says, Chicago Blackhawks dropped their 4th straight game Tuesday night, continued to toll at the bottom of the league, sitting last in the Central Division. All the losing is appearing to get to veteran defenseman Seth Jones, who said after a 2-1 defeat at the hands of the Utah Hockey Club that he hasn't seen any improvements from his team all season. I think we're in the exact same team right now as we were in game 1. It's pretty evident out there. We haven't made any strides to be better, more simple hockey team, and it shows. We don't get a lot of wins because of that, he told reporters. This has been almost 4 years of being in the bottom of the league, so it's not just this year for me at least. Yeah, I think the Blackhawks should trade Seth Jones, not for what he said here. I know people are upset about this, but like, I'd rather a player show a bit of emotion and frustration than a player say nothing. Like, it's been a tough year. They brought in some other players to help Bedard. Bedard hasn't been producing. I still think they got some goaltending issues. They've got to do something. And I think I know you look at that contract with Seth Jones right now, and you go, who's going to take that? We had Troy on here a few weeks ago, and I thought he came up with a brilliant suggestion of trading him with retained salary. So if you look at Seth Jones, we're going to go see the roster breakdown right now of Chicago. If my browser will not trip out right now, where are we here? 1 second. Sorry, guys. I don't know what happened to that window. So Seth Jones is still under contract until 2030 at 9.5. But you reduce that 9.5 down to like, I don't know, 7, 6. You'd take some retained salary. I know they already have some retained salary already. But because obviously they're retaining part of Mikko Rantanen's contract as well. But that's off the books for next year. You do that, then, maybe there is a team that can throw in a first-round picker. I think really what Chicago needs, they don't need any more picks. They need players. So if you're a Dallas, he mentioned Dallas as an option. I think that's a great idea. Get Dallas to take Chicago to retain some salary and put Seth Jones in there. Because Seth Jones is a good defenseman. He's just not on a good team. Let's look at the stats this year. He's got 27 points for a defenseman. He's got what? 8 points less than Elias Pettersson. 31 points a year before, 37 for a defenseman. He's got 51 a couple years ago. He's a good player. He just needs to be in a better situation. I think these guys that have been there for so long and are losing, not a Bedard, but like a Seth Jones, get something out of him, trade him, get something in return, and get the guy out of this rebuild, because that's basically what we've been doing for such a long time. And try and get players that can help now, because it's really unfortunate to see Chicago just. I would tend to agree. They're in, like, if you took the Chicago team from last year and this year, there's not a huge difference between the two. Still waiting on the Blues to get it together. Yeah, I think they're also not a playoff team. That's an indictment of the coaches and the structure. With Pettersson, I don't know though. Like, why are other guys playing better? Why is there more offensive upside? I'm not going to say I'm a fan of the coaching by any means. I don't like the dump and chase. But here's the thing: what changed from this year to last year? That Talkett had the exact same system last year. That maybe they're a little bit more defensive this year, but it's a pretty much the exact same system. Why is Pettersson struggling? Why are all these other? Brock Besser, 4 goals in I think 19 games or something. You've got Connor Garland not scoring. There's a lot of players that are struggling. Is it all the structure? I don't know about that. And you got to think too, with the Canucks, they've gone through how many coaches? Travis Green, Bruce Boudreau. Now they're on Talkett. There is some talk that maybe Talkett won't be back next year. I don't know, but I do have concerns about the coaching, but that can't all be on Pettersson. Again, why is Pettersson struggling in the Four Nations? That's not Rick Talkett coaching that team. No Jones comments on same from day one. Yeah, I just talked about the comments, and I think that he's within his right to say that. I think Chicago needs to do something here. Yeah, I think that Seth Jones needs to change the scenery at this point. I think we're going to see some activity at the deadline here. I think there's going to be a lot of teams looking to make some moves, and it'll be curious to see which direction some of these teams go. Like, I think for the Canucks personally, Thomas Drance had a great article. Actually, I'll bring it up here with the Canucks, and I think it applies well to even this Pettersson stuff here. Canucks should be sellers and still make a point of, trying to make the playoffs, but I think they can still sell. I think, like we talked about this for weeks, Brock Besser is going to be out of here. Oh, hold on. Trying to find the article for yesterday. Here we go. Great article here by Thomas Drance. So 4 reasons why the Canucks must exercise patience at the deadline. Completely agree. So here's the key one right here. It is number 3. Vancouver's first round matchup is likely to be a beast. Like, Canucks aren't going to go far. Even if they do make it in the playoffs, this is not a team that's going to go on a run. They don't have Thatcher Demko to steal games for them. It's Kevin Lankinen. I've told you I'm a fan of them re-signing him. I think he brings stability to the team, but he's not a goalie that's going to steal games for you like Demko can. So you don't even have that factor in there. And then it's just the simple fact that, this is not the same team from last year. Last year, I felt like there were games where, they could come back, they could make some noise. Last year was a year they could have gone on a run. This year, I don't feel the same way. Yeah, so the Canucks have meaningful prospects coming. So again, you don't want to be trading prospects. And then the other point here is their star level contributors aren't sure bets right now. And that's 100% true. They're not going to be difference makers in the playoffs. So to me, stand pat, sell a Besser, and don't sell a Besser and take that first round pick and flip it to someone else and get someone immediately now. I don't think that makes sense. They don't need to do all that. Wait until free agency. Wait until teams are cap strapped. See what the landscape looks like. See if Pettersson's going to be part of your team. If he's not part of your team, then maybe you look at other options for bringing in new players. So I think, I don't want to see the Canucks being buyers. I would rather see them be sellers. Sell off Besser. Sell off. I mean, again, another guy too that's a free agent for the Canucks, Piece Suter. If he's not coming back next year, you look at trading him too. Get some value for your UFAs. You don't want to see players walk and not get anything in return, because this is the year not to do it. If this is the year where the Canucks could go on some sort of crazy playoff run and you got some UFAs, I could understand them holding on and maybe hoping to re-sign some of these guys. But I think any UFAs, and let's go look at them right now. You get something in return for them, because there's a couple of UFAs. There's just looking at the roster breakdown. By the way, God bless Puckpedia. Yeah, we got that there. So yeah, Besser's up. He's at 6.6. We're hearing he wants around 8, which is way too much. Suter, obviously Sherwood's under contract, which is good. Drew O'Connor they re-signed, which is good. Maybe paid him a little bit too much, but that's okay. And then that's what I mean. Derek Forbort, they don't need to trade him to get value back for Derek Forbort by any means. So that's certainly going to be interesting. But yeah, I think the big thing right now is Besser and maybe looking at moving Suter, unless you want to sign Suter to like a team-friendly contract. I think that makes sense. Keep the questions coming, everyone. We can talk Canucks. We can talk whatever you guys want, whatever's on your mind. Let's take a look to tonight's games a little bit. Just a couple games on the docket right now. We have the Winnipeg Jets playing the Ottawa Senators. Trying to refresh my memory here about the Senators the last couple of games. I feel like they haven't been doing too well. So they are winless in their last 3 games. So what an opportunity here if they're able to beat the Jets. If I'm the Jets, I'm playing Eric Comrie. Connor Hellebuck probably needs a break. Actually, this looks like they have a game preview here. I hope this isn't a video. No, that's all they have. It's just an Instagram post. Very interested to see how this one goes. Again, the Jets, very red hot. What are the odds, actually? Let's go check out some odds here, courtesy of our friends over at Bodog, and see what we have as it's taking a while to load. While we're waiting for that, let's have a quick look at some of the other games as well. So we have Devils and Avalanche. That'll be a good tilt. Again, Avalanche sliding a bit down the standings. Devils, I believe, are still without Markstrom, right? So see how that looks. Devils on the road there. And then a big game for the Canucks and Kings. Of course, they're both vying for the same spot. They're both trying to make the playoffs in the Western Conference. And Canucks need to win. They're on the road. Looks like they're getting Quinn Hughes back. I would imagine that, they'll get some more offense from him. And if that's the case, I think it's possible they can beat the Kings. But for whatever reason, I don't even know why, but over the last couple of years, the Canucks have not played the Kings well. I don't know why that is. Not entirely sure, but curious to see Hughes being back in the lineup if that makes a difference. I know they switched the lineups a little bit. I believe they put Höglander on Pettersson's line, and we're waiting to see. Thomas Drance had the let's see. Yeah, this looks like the lineup that they're going with. DeBrusk, Pettersson, Höglander, Joshua, Cheadle, Garland, O'Connor, Suter, Besser. Besser on the third line. Jesus. Maybe to get something going. Baines, Bluger, Sherwood. And then again, defense is as is. They got Mancini playing tonight, which is great. That was one of the big names that they acquired. One of the big prospects they acquired in the JT Miller trade. So, yeah. And again, looking on the odds tonight, let's see if there's any value worth grabbing. So yeah, Jets are minus 150. I'm guessing because they're on the road. And Jets played last night, right? So that might be why. But yeah, that's pretty good odds on the Jets against the Senators. I know they're on the road, but they should still win. The Avs at home at minus 147. That might be worth a stab too. Canucks are plus money. I might throw a little bit on the Canucks. I think they're due for a win. You get Quinn Hughes back. I know they don't play the Kings well, but you're getting them at plus 155. That might be worth a stab here tonight from a betting perspective. I don't disagree. However, you look at the draft, it's certainly not a deep pool this year. If you sell off, you may not see the return unless you are trading for established prospects. Yeah, I think get a pick and then, you bring up a good point. Well, maybe you get the pick for next year. I don't know. Maybe you don't get a first round pick in this year's draft. Maybe you look at first round pick in the year after or something. I agree. It's not a very deep draft. But I just don't want them to keep flipping players like this all the time. Unless there's something really good. I don't mind them getting Marcus Pettersson. They needed defensive help. The Canucks did. And it certainly seems like that. I can't remember the last time there's been a defensive breakdown for the Canucks since they've gotten Marcus Pettersson. So that's good news. Now it's a matter of getting that offense going because they don't have much of it. But I think it's almost certain Brock Besser's gone. And I don't want to sign Brock Besser to an 8-year contract. I don't want to sign Brock Besser to a similar JT Miller contract. Let's look at Besser's stats here. Other than last season, he hasn't given a whole lot, right? And some of that is injury related, but he's also not a great skater. And that's something that I've said before is one of the reasons why I do not want to see, I don't want to see them lock him up for long term. So you look at it there, Besser's best season was last year at 73 points. Other than that, he's like a 50-point player, 46, 49. I don't know. I don't know if it's worth keeping him around. This year he's at 16. He's minus 17. So not very good on Brock Besser's end. Let's keep the questions coming, everyone. What else is on your mind? Who are you liking for tonight's games? Again, just a couple games there. We can also look ahead to tomorrow night. A couple big games here. The Flames still on the road against the Lightning. If the Flames could get a win there, that would be huge for them. The Islanders and Bruins should be interesting. You got the Jackets and Red Wings. Big battle there in the East for that playoff spot. You got the Sharks and the Canadiens, Sabres and Hurricanes. Sabres, can they continue their winning ways? Yeah, you mentioned it there. The Hurricanes actually struggling a little bit. Let's see what their record is as of late. So they lose there. They lose to the Leafs. They did beat Utah 7-3. And then they lost to the Wild and the Jets before that and the Kings. So I don't know what's going on with Carolina. The Mikko Rantanen thing hasn't really given them the boost I think they've wanted. I've said this before. There's not a team in the NHL that gets more favorable coverage than Carolina. So don't mind seeing Carolina stumbling a little bit because everyone talks about how great of a team they are. And it's they got some deficiencies, especially in goaltending. What else do we have? Blues and Capitals, big game there. The Capitals bounce back. The Oilers, I mentioned it there. They've struggled a little bit here. So they lost to the Lightning. They lost to the Capitals. They lost to the Flyers and the Avalanche. And then they beat the Blackhawks back on February 5th. So they're on a 4-game losing streak. Let's see if they can snap out of it. Not a good time to be losing this time of year. Jets and Predators, Wild and Utah, Canucks and Ducks. So Canucks doing back-to-back, but again, LA to Anaheim not that far apart. Friday, we have the Leafs and Rangers, Kings and Stars, Wild and Avalanche. Saturday night, a lot of games on here, including the Canucks in Seattle playing the Kraken on March 1st. So we'll see how all that goes. But it's getting interesting. We're a couple days, well, not a couple, we're 7 days away from the trade deadline. When is the NHL trade deadline? It is March 7th. So yes, a week this Friday. I'm going to probably take the day off. I do that every year to watch the trade deadline. I love seeing that. let's see if there's any sort of, there was a kind of an article on The Athletic talking about, certain teams that could be trading or not. We'll have to see. Let's see. Well, here we got the trade board. Let's go with that. Some names to keep an eye on there for you guys. So Brock Nelson of the Islanders. He's the number one guy there, $6 million. Ricard Raquel, another guy to keep an eye on there too. Sorry, I'm going to close all these browsers here. Whoops. Seth Jones, Ristolainen from Philadelphia. What's he coming in at? He's 5.1. Dylan Cousins. Is Cousins a RFA? Or is he just on the block there? I was curious about that. What do we have? Let's see. Buffalo. So Cousins is... Oh, no, he's got a number of years left. He's at 7.1. I guess just because it's not working out for him that teams are looking to move on from him. What else do we got? Bowen Byram, again, on the block. Buffalo's they're going to have to do something here. We'll see if any of these names get moved. I have a feeling one of these names will get moved because Buffalo, again, just hasn't been able to get it done. Scott Lawton, $3 million. Brandon Tanev, Mikko Rantanen, Braden Shen, Kyle Palmieri, Carson Soucy for the Canucks, who's not had a good season but could help out a team. He's a big body. Joel Armia, Jake Evans, Casey Middlestat. Again, it's funny how Casey Middlestat and Bowen Byram are on the trade block when they were traded for each other. Nyquist, Trent Frederick, Matthew Olivier, Brock Besser, Brad Marchand, Brandon Carlo, Connor Murphy, Yanni Gord would be a good pickup, although I think he's injured right now. Jordan Greenway, I've always liked his game. He's at $3 million. Provorov, Mario Ferraro, Ryan O'Reilly, McCarron, Savard, Lindgren, Zegras is always a name in the trade rumors, as is Nick Robertson, Beauvillier, Kuzmenko, and Erik Karlsson. So, yeah, it's going to be a really interesting deadline. Again, you got to think a team, if Carolina can't sign Rantanen, you got to find a team that had, I would, if I'm Columbus, maybe I look at Mikko Rantanen. You got the assets to do it. You can afford it. There's very few teams with the cap space. Utah is another team I would look at for possibly making a deal. I'm going to even see if they have it listed. Teams was the most cap space in the NHL. NHL teams by salary cap and salary cap hit. Let's look at it here. Yeah, so the Blue Jackets have $19 million in cap space. Calgary has a lot too, although I don't think they're really interested in making a big splash there. Get the Ducks, Sharks, Predators have got 6.6. And then you got all these teams that are over the cap, like Washington or Toronto. So, yeah, I mean, that's a lot of cap space. And you basically replace a Johnny Gaudreau by picking up Mikko Rantanen, but you're going to get something in return there. So we'll have to see which way they decide to go there. But yeah, very interesting. This is one of the biggest currencies in the NHL is cap space. So if you're Calgary, if you're Columbus, Anaheim, any of these teams, you might want to look at retaining some salary and building up that prospect pool or taking on some good assets here as well. But look at this. There's what? 1, 2, 3. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. There's less than half of the teams have cap space. Everyone else is capped out. I mean, there's teams like, the Knights and, they're right up against the cap. So I don't know. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens. All right, guys, I think good time to put a bow in today's show. We'll do a bit of a shorter show here today. Next week, I'll try and get a guest on and we can talk a little bit more about what is going on in the world of the NHL. My name is James Lynch. Appreciate you guys tuning in. We do the show every Wednesday. It's an interactive show where you guys can submit your questions. We can talk about all the things that are going on in the league. Maybe actually next week. Well, you know what? Maybe we'll do. Why don't we do this? We'll do a show next week on Wednesday. I'll try and get a guest for that. And then how about the week after? We'll do a trade deadline show, maybe on Friday. I think that would be fun because I'm going to be watching it anyways. We'll be keeping an eye out, get some instant reaction. Maybe we'll get Troy back on here. We'll see. We'll pick out something here very good and see what's going on. Again, this is the Fanatics View Hockey Show. My name is James Lynch. Appreciate you guys watching. Leave any feedback in the comments. Always love hearing from you. Hope you guys have a great rest of your Wednesday, and I'll talk to you guys next week. Take care.